Welcome to Disability Empowerment Now. I'm your host, Keith Murphy DiGiancini. Today I'm talking to Kurt Yaeger, a professional writer and actor who is also an amputee. Kurt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Keith. It's good to be on your show.
Thank you. I just have to start off the bat. My mother is going to be very jealous because you are in every NCIS show as a guest star, and my parents love NCIS. I cannot fully articulate how much they love NCIS. So let's start there because I was aware of you a lot sooner than I actually knew who you are.
Right.
The episode I'm thinking of the main series was, I believe, season 11, many years ago. Your character in that episode helped a side character who was very close to a main character fully or more fully adapt to living their life as disabled. And that really solidified their relationship. Can you take me back to that audition, that time period of getting into the #1 TV show on air at that time?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like an audition came through, my agents that I have, and they were wanting to cast authentically, and which is great because NCIS is really about trying to cast as authentically as it can. And that came from the casting director, Jason Kennedy and Susan Bluestein, who are both great people. And Jason and I have developed a great relationship, obviously, from being on 4 of the TV shows. And it was great. As I remember the audition, they were seeing a bunch of different people because they wanted to be able to have like the best opportunity to show the best actor for the role. And if you remember right, the character in one scene comes in and he's like parachuting in, right?
At the end of the episode,
right.
I remember it very clearly, and not because we watched it a week ago. I was very taken with that show when I first saw it because it was such a moving and evocative scene. And I remember texting with a classmate. We were concerned that they were gonna kill the character off. And because that's let's be real, what shows and movies usually do. And we were both pleasantly surprised. So yeah, that scene you're talking about is at the very end of the episode.
Yeah. So in the audition process, I figured they were going to have to do something like that, where the actor would have to be able to do that physicality, right? Where you're not afraid of heights. Because, I came in off of a 6-story building to come into that scene. And so that's 60, 65 feet up. And I was like, hey, I rode BMX and did backflips over big jumps, so I'm not afraid of heights. And they were excited about that. And then I did a good performance as well. And then what was great is working on the show is I got to um, spend time with a really wonderful actress named Polly Peretti. If you know her from the show, she's like
Yes,
the tech
yes.
gal. Well, she's a huge, huge advocate for disabilities, and she came into the. It's called a table read. You all sit around
Yeah,
before you film, right? And you're sitting there and you're reading all the scripts and everything else. And she's like, "Hey, I want to just sit down and have a conversation with everybody." And she sat there and told the whole room how important it was that this character was portrayed authentically and correctly and all the rest of it. And I'm a below the knee amputee. And she didn't know I was disabled. So I didn't say anything. And she's telling me how to be in the disabled community, but she's doing it correctly, right? Because her best friend is a wheelchair user. And so she's telling all these other people the correct information, but she's lumping me in with everybody else, telling me how to behave, which I love because she was doing it the right way. And
yeah.
so I didn't say anything. And I just sat back and let her do her thing. And then 4 days go by. I get this text message and she's like, "Can you hop on a call?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Why didn't you tell me you were disabled?" And I was like, "Because you were doing such a good job." And she was like, "I'm so embarrassed." I'm like, "No, it was perfect." And then so she loves telling that story now because I didn't say
Nice.
anything, and but she was a great advocate as well for disabilities and has done a lot of great work in the industry as well. So you got people who are, stars of the show that are really active in it. And as you know, I went on to do the other NCIS shows, but I did NCIS LA specifically, and I became good friends or friendly with Daniela Rua, who's plays Kenzie in NCIS LA, and she actually is a huge advocate for all inclusiveness, but loved our conversations about disability so much that she came on to my advisory board for raising financial um, capital in order to get more work for performers with disabilities. And so the NCIS world is really a great, great place. Good people in front of the camera, behind the camera, really great people.
I'm tempted to try to get uh, more people from that world on this podcast because, and not just because of my mother's love for it, just hearing about all this. One of my favorite shows, series, universes of all time. If you didn't tell me this, if I didn't read it in an article, I would
Mm-hmm.
have no idea. I am
Yeah.
very pleasantly blown away. So, in the mainline series, you play a character who is very confident and very
Mm-hmm.
self assured
Yeah.
in their disability. Hop over to NCIS New Orleans and
Mm-hmm.
you play the character or a different character on the opposite uh,
Yeah.
continuum. But that show, and apologies if you hear my dog barking in the background, uh, but but NCIS New Orleans, I would assume would be a very special experience because even though you didn't interact with him so much on screen, one of the main characters on that
Mhm.
show is in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And so the vibe around set, what was that like to be on a show that actually incorporated disability into one of their main characters.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting story because not only is you're speaking of Daryl Chill Mitchell, who plays a wheelchair using actor on the whole show, but the reason why he's on that show is because of another person that's behind the scenes. Catherine Bietti is a writer and a producer on the show who also happens to be disabled. And so she has cerebral palsy and is ambulatory to a point, and then uses a wheelchair sometimes. And so she is, uses those different mobility devices, and that impacts the storylines that they create. Because instead of having a room full of a bunch of people who are able-bodied, who go, "Oh, those poor disabled people probably couldn't do this, so let's write that." You have someone in the room saying, "Hey, no, disabled people can do everything. They can do this," and they're like, "Oh, let's write that. Let's write this." So they came into it where they wanted Daryl's character to have to sort of encourage my character to come out of his shell. Where you mentioned he's the opposite kind of character from the other one. So you have someone like Daryl who's like, "Hey, come out of your shell," and then my character's like, "I'm not in a shell. I'm perfectly fine." And you're like, "No, look at brother, you're not," and it's like, that's now saying, look at someone with a disability is complimenting and helping someone else with a disability instead of an able-bodied person helping the person with a disability, and like that's where it's showing like an equal amount of character importance inside the story. And that comes from having a writer with a disability on the show behind the scenes, making sure that it's done well. So I think that's why it's super important. When you see characters generally that are written really well that happen to have a disability, it's usually because someone in the power structure behind the scenes has a disability themselves. Oh, I think you went mute. Yeah, you muted yourself.
Sorry, force of habit. I'm on a lot of Zoom calls, as I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
What you just said is both incredibly important and incredibly encouraging that there are more and more representation of disability not only on the screen but behind the screen. So let's get into your origin story, um, because I have cerebral palsy diagnosed when I was 3. All I've known is disability. This
Hmm.
is the normal for me.
Yeah.
But in doing my research on you, Wikipedia, uh, I was struck, oh choice of words. I tell you, you can't
No,
get
I
around that
love it, man. You
sometimes.
say whatever you got to say, man. I don't give a
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. I mean, thanks. Your story was very moving and evocative in its own way because you were in a motorcycle wreck that, pardon the phrase, sort of tore you limb from limb in a
Yeah.
way. And you still, to this day, ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
What was your own experience adapting to your new normal? And how did you repair the relationship you had with motorcycles, or did it even need to be repaired?
Yeah. No, it's a very interesting question because, my motorcycle accident was pretty rough. Like I hit a guardrail at 80 miles an hour and fell off a 40-foot cliff. So I tore off my left leg, but I broke my pelvis in half, tore my bladder in half, broke my seven vertebrae, collapsed my lungs, broke all my right ribs, concussion, ACL and MCL. I was a big mess. And, in the hospital for 3.5 months, lost 60 pounds while I was there, and then came out and had to recover for another year and a half. So not just losing a limb, but losing all my muscle, losing everything that I had. The greatest impact that it had on me was not physical. It obviously had a major impact physically, but what it did was had a much greater impact on me psychologically. It showed me who my family was. They all rallied around me. It showed me who my friends were and some who weren't. It showed me what was important in life. It made it crystal clear the things that were important. It made me understand that death was a lot more close than I realized. So I better get to living. It also made me realize how incredibly important I thought being physical was when there were so many other aspects to existence, like being more of a voracious reader, like what that would do for me. And yeah, I leaned so heavy on being physically good that I might have not been pursuing some other parts of who I was. And one of those big parts was emotional honesty, like being vulnerable in front of people. I was locked in, like I'm me, I'm a man on an island, no one can get me, I'm safe. And all of a sudden I was exposed to everybody because I needed help. And so that made me significantly more empathetic. It taught me empathy. It taught me understanding. It taught me everything about that. Using a wheelchair for, on and off for a year made me realize the struggles of that. And not because it's really hard to move around. It's more like just because it wasn't designed well. Like the sidewalks are designed crappy, the stairs are designed crappy, the ramps are designed crappy. That's not a wheelchair user's fault. That's everybody else's fault. You know what I mean? And it made me reconsider not just universal design, but universal thinking. Like realizing that for me, the best day of my life was when I lost my leg. And so it made me go, wait a minute, maybe the best part about somebody is their difference of living. Like that's what
Wait,
makes you
hold
unique.
on.
Yeah.
Wait. Did you just say, I want to make sure there's not some problem with my audio? And you know exactly where I'm going because we're on that wavelength. Did you just say the best day of your life was the day you lost your leg?
Yes. The best day of my life was when I lost my leg. It just took me 5 years to realize it. So I learned so much more about life and love and empathy and family and importance and the shortness of life because of that. So people will ask me, "Hey, Kurt, do you want your leg back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to have it back. But do I get to keep everything I learned from losing it?" And if the answer is no, then I'd rather have lost a leg and learned what I've learned. So I couldn't possibly get the leg back and then, oh, have learned that. Like it's impossible. So I don't think I would have been as well rounded of a person had I not lost my leg. I believe in God, and for me, it was almost like God was trying to tell me for 29 years, "Hey, be this way," and then I was like, "No," and then he was like, I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, sorry, you know what I mean? Like, and it taught me a lot of things, and I'm still learning those lessons. But you know, I wouldn't have learned it any other way. I just wouldn't have. And so, you know, I feel like kind of like a little bit of a mission to like fix the broken part of the able-bodied world. Like, I'm not here to help people with disabilities. I'm here to help people who don't have disabilities understand the value of people with disabilities. Like, I have a foot in both worlds. And so I'm not trying to go, hey, disabled person, let me help you. I'm one of you, which I'm building a financial institution to back films with disabilities. Sure, yeah. But that's not helping people with disabilities. That's highlighting their power.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to able bodied people, I'm not like, you really should bring in a person with a disability. I'm like, no, you should talk to Keith. He's awesome and he's got great ideas and he comes from it from a unique perspective. You just need to open your mind a little bit. Like, so I'm preaching value, and I didn't realize that value, and I wouldn't have unless I had my accident.
All of that is incredible. Your outlook and how you got to it is empowering and encouraging. I'll be using those words a lot over this episode. I don't really break the fourth wall a lot. But so, how did you repair your relationship with motorcycles? Because
Right.
I've got to say, I fell off a Segway once in the middle of the street, in the middle of traffic, and I was done.
Mm-hmm.
Sayonara. I I've never looked back and never regretted it, but you've done something different. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've got back on motorcycles and I've ridden all around the world since then. I've ridden through Africa for a month and a half with a backpack and camping gear. Madagascar, Thailand. I became the host of the BMW GS Trophy, which is an adventure race, and they needed a motorcycle rider who could keep up with the athletes, but who could speak well on camera. And so they hired me. They didn't know I was an amputee until afterwards, but they were blown away at how fast I was. Um, for me, I grew up riding motorcycles, and I rode BMX, like doing flips over jumps and stuff like that for many, many years, and I was sponsored. And so for me, as you can even see in the background, two wheels isn't just kind of a thing I did. It's literally a part of who I am. My dad took me riding when I was 4 years old. I learned how to ride before. And so losing that part of me, I don't think I could have continued on with life the same way, just giving it up when I had the option to get it back. And for me, I ride differently. I'm not quite as good as I was and everything else, but I still can ride. Um, but what's interesting is every time I put on my helmet, I still have a flash of like the accident every single time. And I put it on and I go, okay. And then I start riding, and I go for my ride. Um, but it's like, it's weird. I think riding BMX bikes, you learn the only way to learn is by making mistakes, right? Like my first backflip, I wasn't like, woo, and then landed it and rolled away. I was like, all right. I was like, oh, and crashed and was like, oh man, that's not the right way to do it. And so I learned that the only way that you can learn is by making mistakes. And so instead of thinking of all life's issues, psychologically, emotionally, or physical, I made a mistake. I should be mad at myself. Be like, no, I made a mistake. Great. That's awesome. I'm going to make more mistakes, because the more mistakes that I make, the more I'm going to learn. I just have to pay attention to what the solution is and how I did it, so that I can change what I did and have a different methodology. So I just saw it as like part of my learning process in life. Um, And then for me, just, even if I was paralyzed, I would have figured out a way to have a motorcycle where I strapped in and had, like we training wheels. I've even seen that on motorcycles. They have training wheels that at 5 miles an hour they come down and then poked out so you don't fall over. And then you get going again and they go woo, and they roll up as you go faster than 5 miles an hour. So I have my friend I was gonna say Daryl, but it's not Daryl. Uh Damien. No, not Damien. Darius. This guy Darius. He's a wheelchair using motocross rider. Um, from he lives in Florida, and he's paralyzed, and he can jump 90-foot jumps on his dirt bike, and he races against able-bodied people and beats them. And I'm like, cool. So he's doing it. So for me, it was just a matter of like, you crashed. Okay, get up, fix it, figure it out. Like what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So outside of your acting, you've also spoken at events. You're
Mm-hmm.
philanthropist. The one I'm thinking of is the 2011 Women Who Care
Mm-hmm.
event put
Mm-hmm.
on by UCP, United
Yeah.
Cerebral Palsy. And
Yeah.
the guest lists and speakers there are quite something.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like? Because pardon me, I didn't expect a man to be headlined at a event titled Women Who Care.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, not to get into the politics, but again, tell us about that experience because that must have been quite something.
Yeah, I met some really amazing people at the event. It was in New York City because UCP of NYC. Like that was the organization that put it on, the NYC chapter. And a really great group. But it's really interesting because you know, being a part of the disabled community, like I don't have CP, but I'm in the group enough that the job of mine is to like learn everybody else's disability and what it's about and what the value is and stuff like that. And in doing so is part of the reason why you have uh, an invite to speak at those events because I don't have CP, right? All right. So what do I know? Oh, I'm not a woman, right? So what do I know about the event? Part of it is my job is to learn everything about other disabilities so that I'm not an advocate. I don't even understand that word sometimes. It's because I'm literally, I don't even want to say ally. It's I just am. I'm one of everybody. I learn everything about everybody else that I can so that I can go, okay, I understand that perspective. And then I put it through this noggin and then I can speak to it, and I think what it is I'm able to sort of understand what it's like to be, perceived as disabled. And then other times I'm not. And then how I hear other people going through that process. Like my buddy David Ratcliffe, he's a writer, he is CP. Catherine Bietti, who I mentioned earlier, has CP. And I see that like how they are perceived and what their uh, able-bodied counterparts think. And so being able to speak at an event like that, I can say, hey, look, this is how it is. This is how I see it. This is my perspective. And that's why my perspective is valuable because it's not just the same thing. It's another perspective. And I think you have to have all the different perspectives and the truth of all the perspectives in order to have what I call like the God perspective, which is more like the 30,000-foot view where you can see all the perspectives and push them together. You're like, that's true, but also this is true. So where do they meet? And like that's kind of like that whole point of those experiences is the fact that I get to be in different rooms with different people of note, I guess, and we're telling each other our perspectives to large groups of influential people, so that they can hopefully take that message back and gain a little perspective for their lives, so that they're not making mistakes and doing harm. They're actually doing good and progressing towards like a better society.
So, you mentioned, or I mentioned at the top, that you're also an author. I must admit, I did not know that. What
Hmm.
do you write?
Screenplays, mostly
Uh,
screenplays and teleplays. Yeah, I have a book or two that I've outlined, and they're okay. They're okay. I'm pretty picky. I'm pretty hard on myself. But from a writing perspective, I write a lot of TV shows that I want to see or that I want to be in. I sold a show to Sony, but we're waiting until the strike is over in order to move forward on that. And I've got a couple other projects that's in development, but we're waiting for the strike to be over. Um, and I write anything. I wrote a very dark movie about the first case of zombieism in North America, and it's really, really brutal and sinister. And then I wrote a Hallmark movie about love and everything else, and everyone's like, "That doesn't make any sense. How are you writing those two things?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What
wow.
it gets in my brain."
So, just for the listeners, the NCIS episode you were in is called Bulletproof,
Yes,
uh, and the NCIS New Orleans is called In Plain Sight,
right,
just
right.
for reference. Uh, we were talking before we actually started recording, that there is a aptly titled article on you
Yeah,
done a few weeks ago. Won't name the publication or the author. The title is just enough. And usually I never cut on this show. I don't know why. I let my guests do it. I try to stay neutral, but this
yeah.
time I can, because it's such
Yay!
a great line. And you were quoted in that article saying, "I don't care if I become a one legged bastard." Tell us more about embracing such a colorful phrase.
Yeah. Yeah, the phrase, it's funny. Like I kind of threw it away. I was just talking. I'm like, look, I don't care if you call me a one-legged bastard. Your words mean nothing to me. If they're, you know what I mean? Like it just I was owning my own thing. You can call me an amputee, a stumpy guy, a one-legged bastard, this, that, and the, like I just was like basically taking away all their power, saying you can't do anything to harm me. There's nothing you can do. I am autonomous. I am my own person, and you might make mistakes, and it's fine. I don't care. But I don't care what label you put on me. Just give me a call. Just give me an actor call. Just give me an audition. Just open the door and give me a shot. I don't care if you even hire me. Like I'm not a big fan of the politics of like equal outcomes. I don't care about equal outcomes. I care about equal access. Like if I don't want to hire you, I don't want to hire you. It might be 100 different reasons, but it shouldn't be one. I don't want to see you for an audition. I don't want to see you for a um, interview, because that's what an audition is. It's an interview, and then you can't say, "Well, I don't want to hire you because you have a disability." I have to not want to hire you because you have a maybe not exactly the character type that I need for my office, or I don't believe you have the skills, or I don't believe you have the experience, or I don't know if you would mesh with the rest of the people yet. Those are fitting issues. It's not disabilities. And too many times, so many people are like, "Oh, well, he's can Kurt play this character?" And they're like, "No, he's got one leg." And it's like, what does that have to do with anything? And if they're doing that to me as an amputee, right? That's way down here. We haven't even seen the leg yet.
Yeah.
So, okay. So if they're doing that to me, how much are they doing it to everybody else where it is seen?
Yeah.
Where you're deaf or blind or CP or your speech is a little, like slow or whatever else comparatively.
Yeah.
Then they're like, oh, wait, is he not thinking as much? I'm like, no, he's thinking perfectly fine. Oh, he said this, that, the other. And instead of them thinking about how fucking cool it is,
Yeah.
right? Like that's
Yeah.
where it boggles my mind. So I think that
Yeah.
that's why I kind of let that out in an interview. Was I was sort of like, I don't know the right word. Um, I just was taking their arguments, all those things, and then taking a machete and chopping the leg off and saying, "There you go. You've got nothing to stand on. Hire someone with a disability. Period.
Yeah.
Don't call me for the disabled roles. I don't care what you call me, but just open the door and give me a shot. If you don't hire me, you don't hire me, but you will because I'm good." And so,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
that. And then once they get that through their heads, then they start seeing disabilities as an attribute. They
Yeah.
start seeing disabilities as a value. They're like, what if the character is missing a leg and we don't see it until 5 episodes in? Oh, what does that do? And then
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? Then they start thinking about it. Or like, what if there's like a character that has CP and the person's like, depending on their level of CP, they're at a desk the whole time and they're like taking calls and everything else. And then after 2 episodes, we see that they need a walking device and we don't talk about it. It's just there because
Yeah.
it's not important to the character.
Yeah.
That's the importance of that big statement of, I don't care if you call me a one-legged bastard.
Yeah. To share something personal, I have CP, which manifests as this delightful voice all of you
Mhm.
are listening to. But, but the only one who finds it delightful is my dog. uh, but I cannot tell you how many people have mistook me for a drunk all the time or on drugs. And I'm
Mhm.
like, in my head, I have 2 master's degrees. Maybe check your
Mhm.
assumptions. Uh, but in the asexuality trope is just
Yeah.
uh and I'm going somewhere professionally, a segue, if you will. Bum, bum. uh uh One of your newest shows on Netflix, which I just found out about, and I'm gonna binge watch as soon as I can. And before we beg you to come back on to talk about, it's called Life,
Yeah, another life.
Another Life, and it's a space show, and your disability, your character's disability, and your disability is very, it's featured very prominently.
Yes.
And that was always the case. Tell us about reaching that point.
Yeah. Well, it's great because the show, they didn't even care if there was someone with a disability in the role. I just happened to get the audition and booked it, and I was fortunate enough to know a few people in production, and then was able to talk to the showrunner, writer, creator, Aaron Martin, who's an incredible guy. Um, and I said, "Hey, man, I want to talk to you about my prosthetic leg and my disability, and And he's like, great, I want to talk to you. What do you think you want to do? And I go, well, I've never been able to show my leg juxtaposed to pure strength. And he's like, what do you mean? And I go, it's always like, hey, Kurt, can you limp more? Because the character is an amputee. Hey, can you be in pain? Can you show that it hurts? Can you? And I'm like, that's your perspective. Like, my perspective is nothing's wrong. I'm better than you. Get out of my way. And so he's like, what? And I go, how about this? The first scene we see me in, how about I have my shirt off completely and I jump out of this thing called a soma tube, which is like long term sleep, right? Because you're in a spaceship for a long time. And I have almost nothing on. And all you can see is my 8-pack. And I'm like built like a racehorse. And I leap down off this 6-foot thing for real. And I don't even have a prosthetic leg on. I just do it on one leg. Leap down, land, and then stand there and go, what's going on, boys? And it's like, who is this guy? And like I said, you have to juxtapose that disability with being sexually attractive, which ends up with a relationship happening with another character. And it's the hardest character that my character has a relationship with. So me having a disability and being sexual breaks down this other character who lost somebody that they loved. And all of that combination is what did it. And you never, ever, ever see somebody with a disability who's sexually active or forward. I mean, we just started seeing it with, I can't remember the show, like College Sex Girls or something like that, whatever, with Lolo, who's on HBO.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, with her, right? Okay, that's like the first almost incantation. But you never, ever, ever see that. Everyone's always
Yeah.
asexual. No one has a girlfriend. No one has a boyfriend. There's no mothers out there in TV land who are a wheelchair user. There's no, I don't know a
No.
wheelchair using mother on any TV show. And
No.
yet I know 50 women who are wheelchair users who are moms. It's never there. So I totally agree. But what I want to give credit to is Aaron for saying, okay, let's do it. And I worked out, and got myself into that position. I trained myself. I don't have a trainer or nothing. And so I just got super jacked. And you know what I mean? Like worked out twice a day, protein, just, and put myself into that position. So when an audience saw it, they didn't see the leg, they saw the rest, and the leg went away. And then if they see that with the leg, maybe they'll see that with 2 legs missing. And if they see that with 2 legs missing, maybe they'll see that with CP and wheelchair. And if
Yeah.
they see that with that, now they go, wait, what else am I missing? And that's when it starts the conversation. That's what I was trying to do.
Well, have you ever thought? I know we touched on it a little earlier, your writing. Have you ever thought about writing a book about your experience adapting to disability and what, not to oversell the point, a groundbreaking experience it has seemed to be. You've really led a incredible act, a next chapter of your life. You write screenplays. Is there any desire in you to write down your story and hope that that forges another perspective and continues the conversation, much like this podcast, I hope?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the answer is yes. I probably will write that. But here's the thing. I'm not done yet. So the
I
book's
knew
not
you
done.
were
You know what I
going
mean?
to say
Like
that. Yeah.
I've got the bit in my mouth and I'm pulling people along. Like I'm still doing it. Like you can go right now to our foundation that we're doing right now as an endowment, but it's a non-profit. It's not a non-profit. It's a for-profit company. It's called XA Endowment. You can go to
XA.
xaendowment.com. You can go there right now, even look at it while I'm talking. But like when this financial institution, which is all about performers with disabilities, talent with disabilities, writers, directors, producers, it's all about supporting them and pushing the doors open and keeping them open, not just getting
Yeah.
one or two and having an opportunity and then it goes away. We're making a permanent platform of financial backing from a business perspective, not going, oh, we're gonna, maybe help from a charity perspective, which is needed. But that's
Yeah.
not what I do. I do it by ripping down the doors of business and showing them that disabilities is good business and makes money. And so I feel like when that is really successful, which it should be in the next 2-3 years. Like we've already raised a bunch of money. We're almost at 1 million already. We're going to be at like 10 million by, I don't want to say when because anyways,
Yeah.
but it'll be pretty soon. And so people can go there and look, we're going to have, finance a huge financing backing of disabilities in film and television for the first time in history. That's when I think that success will be sort of the, okay, why should I listen to Kurt Yaeger or why should I read his book? Like, yeah, he's been in shows. Okay, yeah, he's written a few things. Okay, yeah, he used to be a professional athlete. Okay, yeah, he's really been in 80 episodes of television, so he's got something to say. But there's one more piece missing. You know what I mean? There's one more thing I have to do, and that is I have to smash down that door and keep it open forever for people with disabilities. Not charity, not saying, come
Yeah.
on, hey, more like,
Yeah.
look at, there is great untapped value here. And I'm going to push that together with money and I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to show it. I'm going to prove it. I'm tired of Hollywood not doing it, studios not doing it, production companies not doing it. So I'm going to kick that door open and then I'm going to prop my prosthetic leg in there and keep it open forever.
Jay, you just said, oh, he used to be a professional athlete, as someone would think. But I really think that once they meet you and hear your story or look at your work, you've never stopped
Mm.
being a professional athlete. And that's not me buttering you up for
No,
anything.
please, more butter, more butter.
That's legit because, again, reading the very detailed uh, account of your accident, I mean, you should have died.
Yes,
And
yes,
I mean, you didn't, but people would be forgiven for thinking you should now have a lifelong terror of motorcycles and anything revolving motorsports. And
yeah, yeah.
yet it's the exact opposite. I don't know your history before your disability, but from what I know of your love and passion for motorcycles, it's just like you were born to ride and
Yeah.
you just never given that up, where almost everyone else would have, particularly if they were 1/10 as lucky to come through
Yeah.
what you did. And
Well,
so,
yeah, I think that's the thing is like it's necessary for me to have gone through all that because I not only have to be able to ignore that inner voice that says maybe you shouldn't do this anymore, but I have to ignore everybody else telling me, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this anymore. And I still have to go and do it. Just like everyone said when I'm going to be an actor, they said, hey, maybe you hit your head too hard. Just like when I said as an actor, right, I'm writing now, and they're like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't write because that's for the writers. And I told them to F off. And then I sold some project and they're like, oh, you're good. And then now I'm doing producing and raising money. And they're like, yeah, we're not sure you should do that. I needed to have a life of people telling me no, and then me being say, oh, you want to bet? And so I don't know. It takes that kind of personality to literally go completely against everyone in Hollywood and say, you're all wrong. I'm right.
Yeah.
That is an audacious statement. Like
Yeah.
I'm either delusional or I'm right. And so if I'm delusional, well, then I guess this doesn't matter. But if I'm right, then I have to take on the entire multi-trillion-dollar Hollywood industry and win. How does that? You see what I'm saying? Like so the only way that I could possibly do that is if I learn the lessons physically, because I had to apply those lessons psychologically, emotionally, and to my drive. I had to listen to the motivation of people. And to me, everyone telling me no was a great motivator. It, hey,
Yeah.
you can't do this. You want to bet? Hey, you shouldn't do this. You want to bet? Oh, you can't get that done. You want to bet? Oh, that won't work. Watch me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you had to. You had to.
Yeah. There's a shirt I have that says, go on, underestimate me. That
Yeah,
will be fun. And it's that sort of attitude of, you
yeah,
don't think I'm going to do it? That's just going to make me want to do it
yeah,
so much more to prove you wrong.
yeah.
And
It's
then,
fuel. I love it. It's fuel. Give me more. Tell me I can't. Ah, you know?
so, so if there are any inspiring disability advocates, professionals, academics who are just starting out, or actors, and wanting to know where to begin, how to start making their mark in the world, what would be some action tips that you would provide for them?
Mm. That's tough because, so many people come from different places, right? Like, if you have a lot of resources, then you don't need help figuring out resources. But if you don't, you need to figure out how to obtain resources. If let's say, like, I didn't grow up in a wealthy neighborhood, and I didn't grow up with the best of education, and I grew up in a place where you got in a lot of fights. It was the wrong side of the tracks, right? Well, I learned that it wasn't a detriment for me to grow up that way. It was actually a great positive. But to me, all the people who didn't learn that in life probably never will. And that's okay. But I can learn everything that they know. I can read every book that they've read. I can sit around, and instead of watching a TV show, for instance, I could read Thucydides, Herodotus, or Euclid. I can read Homer, right? I can read the Odyssey. I can read Shakespeare. I can read the Bible. I can consume all the same stuff, like in the movie Good Will Hunting. I could
Yeah,
consume all the syllabuses or syllabi um, of every class that Harvard has to offer because it's online. It tells you what to read. It
yeah,
tells you what they're teaching the elite people. So be elite. Be elite in everything you can. There's a quote that is often misquoted. The misquote is "Jack of all trades, master of none." That's a misquote.
okay,
The real quote is Jack of all trades, master of one. So it's saying be a master of one subject and then be good at everything else, because it'll reinforce your mastery of that one subject. If I can be the best at one thing, it's basically predicated on me being good at a lot of things, because I have to be able to speak the language or communicate what other languages people speak in. If
Yeah.
I'm not an engineer, I have to understand engineering enough to be able to tell an engineer what I need. If I can't do that, I can't communicate, I can't get my vision out. So then I have to be an engineer and be an engineer. But maybe if I'm only an engineer, I can't be a CEO because I
Yeah.
can't talk to people, or I don't know business finance, or I don't, you know what I mean? So I think if you wanted to talk about acting specifically, people go, where do I start? And I go, think about how you can be useful, not
Yeah.
what you're going to get out of it. So you say, okay, I'm an actor, I can act. I'm going to just take classes. No, no, no. How do you be useful? And who are you being useful to? If you're being useful to an agent, that means you need to show them your work. And if you don't have any work, either make it yourself or do a bunch of free projects and get some tape together and then edit it together. And you're like, oh, I don't know how to edit. And I'm like, I didn't say become an editor, but learn to do some basic editing. You
Yeah.
know, then you can put your reel together and then you can show agents. And you're like, all right, well, is your story interesting that you're like fighting through the chasms of trying to become an actor in the film business? Well, then reach out to some podcasts and reach out to some really cool people and say, hey, you want to interview me about what I'm trying to do? Journalists are like, yes, please help. Like, I would love that story. And then so
Yeah.
now you have a couple of articles that people go, oh, cool. And an agent can use that to help you get work. So you're being useful to help the agent as far along in their job as possible. Then, as an actor, you have to be as good as you possibly can. So you're helping the director. And helping the director is different than helping the writer. And helping the
Yeah.
writer or the director is different than helping the producer. They're all different jobs. And so you have to be, like, for instance, to be a really good director's actor, you have to be able to hear a director and what they say and be able to interpret how to
Yeah.
engage in that. And if something's not clicking, you have to be able to speak his or her language to be able to
Yeah.
communicate what's missing there. But that means you have to think of the film from a director's perspective, which means you probably need to direct a few things
Yeah.
and listen to directors and see how they work and maybe take a couple classes on directing. But to be a good actor for a producer, well, that that's not acting. That's for the director. To be one that's helpful for the producer means to be a good person on set, to make sure nothing bad is happening to maybe the people on the crew that could be vulnerable, making sure nothing bad happens, and then having a really good attitude and showing up. And whenever maybe someone's complaining, see if you can fix the problem and help it so that it never even becomes a producer's problem. Like, that's a different level of acting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to understand everybody's job. And when you get to generally a professional level, that means you know everybody else's job and you can help everybody else in their job. Doesn't mean like I'm gonna pick up cable and walk around with the grips, right? But if the grips are doing something and I know what a grip's job is, I'm like, oh, hey, there's this cable that's making it in the shot over. He's like, oh, thanks, Kurt. And I just saved 10 minutes of shooting a scene. And then the script supervisor being, hey, we can see the cable. And like, oh, man. And we just wasted time where I just saw that little thing and I'm being helpful. Now production's awesome. So I think like in especially the beginning stages, of being an actor, learn acting, learn writing, learn directing, learn everybody's job, learn camera equipment, learn who the people are in your region, who the casting directors are, go to film festivals, just start being around the culture of filmmaking. Even if you're not in a film, go to the film festival, just hang out, watch 4 short films and be like, I liked it for those reasons. I didn't like it for those reasons. Are they here? Oh, let me talk to the director and ask him some questions or ask her some questions. That's the best stage, the best place to start is just sort of being useful and immerse yourself in the world. Like it's like saying, how do you want to get a good body and you want to work out? Well, you kind of gotta go to the gym. or at least do some exercises in the living room, and you kind of got to eat right, and so that means you kind of got to know nutrition, which means you kind of need to read it. You see what I'm saying? Like it's all pieces of it, and
Yeah.
and then how do you work out if you're not motivated? Well, you have to have self-love and self-care, and maybe you don't have enough of it, so you find people around you who love you more than you love yourself. So you're like, hey, am I getting fat? No, but come to the gym.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like you got to
Yeah.
figure those things out. Like it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about so much during
Mm.
this episode, and I want to thank you. And I do hope you will consider coming back. Uh,
It'd be my
and
honor.
thank you.
Yeah.
And bring your friends. Hint, hint, hint. Cannot make it more obvious. Uh, but so in this episode, what do you hope that listeners with disabilities take away from
Mm.
what we've talked about? And what do you hope that people, listeners who have yet to discover and embrace their own disabilities, take away from what we've talked about?
I think that those two questions are complementary questions. Your second question answers your first question. The biggest thing I want people to take away is them embracing their disabilities as an asset. It is valuable. Just because able bodied people will devalue it doesn't mean it's not valuable, right? Like if I oh, my wallet is somewhere. Okay, for listening audiences, I'm pulling out my wallet. I'm really not, but it's over there at the couch or something. But I pull out $100 bill. Do you want that $100 bill? Of course.
Uh, yeah, I see
Yeah.
no
But what if?
reason why
Well,
not.
I'm crinkling it up in my hands. I'm smashing it up. It's got wrinkles now, and it's all like gross looking.
I see where you're going.
You see where you're going.
Yeah,
Just because something has wrinkles and creases and dirt and smashed up a bit or different doesn't mean it's lost its intrinsic value. It means it has different value than
yeah,
the perfectly vanilla square non-creased thing. And the perfectly vanilla non-creased thing isn't perfect. It's lacking creases. It
yeah,
it it's it lacking creases is the detriment. That's its disability. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so to me, like the number one thing to take away is to try to find why your specific disability is intrinsically more valuable than not having it. Why do you have your unique perspective on life, on business, on a clothing design, on computer programming, on hosting a podcast, whatever, like make that not your flag. It's just saying this is intrinsically valuable. How does it allow me to come to the perspective of solving problems or caring for people or whatever your job is? How does it uniquely make me qualified where someone who doesn't have this disability isn't as qualified?
yeah,
That is finding its value. Like me having one leg and being an athlete shows to people who are non athletic that you can still do it and try. It shows to able bodied people, wait, disabled people can be athletic. So it confuses people. And when I stick my leg out to show people and they're shocked by it, they then have to change their perspectives on what they think disabilities is. So it gives me a superpower. And it's not because it's like, ah, I'm so much better than. It's just a superpower because it's rare. It's like a diamond. A diamond's like, well, I mean, I guess technically diamonds aren't very rare. They just made it look like that so
but
they can
they
sell
all
blood diamonds.
forever
Yeah.
apparently
Yeah, forever. Yeah. Um,
gone.
Yes, but my point, is that rare things are generally valuable. And if you don't see their value, then it's probably the perspective of the lack of individuals seeing its rarity's value. So look, you see it in that way. And I think that it's like, look, if you have a unique way of looking at life and you can make that useful, now you have not only your disability, but your disability is hyper valued, right? Like, and it might not even be like, oh, it's so cool. It's just the fact that you don't care. You're like, it doesn't matter. Makes people go like, wait, why is this person so confident? Why are they confident? What do they have inside? And you're like, just an inability to disregard your opinion of me.
Yeah.
You know, and we can't all do that. We can't all be that way. But
No.
it's like sometimes just saying that I'm not a, you know, what's the right word or the right term? I'm not devalued because of someone else's lack of ability or understanding of my situation. Like when you said, just because some people think you're drunk or maybe you're not as intelligent, even though you have two master's degrees,
Yeah.
you're like, dude, it is tiring, right? To have to
Yeah.
tell everybody and
Yes.
prove it left and right. And it's like
Yeah.
just endless. And I get it. It is endless, man. I want to punch people in the face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but they can't know until they know that they
Yeah.
didn't know. And
Yeah.
there's no other way to do it other than proving it. Like
Yeah.
it's just as crappy as that is. But that's what I try and want to do with my fund. Like, you know, I'm talking to very large donors right now that are putting in massive amounts of money. And so with this fund, we're literally going to showcase that, you know. So yeah, Keith, if you know some major donors, feel free to connect us. But you know, I think that's the biggest thing is like if you're prepared as much as you can be to take on the world, then one out of 100 people is going to see your value and give you the opportunity. But if you beat yourself up and never explore your disability and gain as much value as you can to be useful, then they won't be able to take advantage of your uniqueness. So be as good
Yeah.
as you can be.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I misheard fund for fun for a quick
Oh.
second. And so I was like, you call large donors for fun. Oh, fun. There's a D there.
Mhm.
I mean, it's totally obvious. But
Yeah.
third, I know we have tried to record this several times. Uh, the third time's the charm or whatever. This has been, I've been so honored just listening to your story, watching you perform, knowing about you several years.
Mm,
I think it was in 2011 that you did that episode, something like
yeah.
that. You never think you're actually gonna meet the people you see
Yeah.
on screen disability or no until you actually do. And uh, I'm we're both believers, and I feel very blessed that I got to interview someone so articulate and so positive and so encouraging about their life and their life adaptation and seeing it as a positive rather than a negative. You've opened up behind the veil of that there are more
Yeah.
people, more disability representation in Hollywood than people may know. And that keep there's not enough,
There's
but
not enough.
it,
Yeah.
it keeps growing and growing. And your fund, we didn't even get to what you do for fun. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I'm just so grateful and so appreciative to
Yeah.
have the time with you that I got to record this episode. And I do hope that you will not only stay in touch, but consider coming back on. And please bring your friends, or please send me
Yeah.
recommendations of people you think I should interview across all sectors, because I'm looking for that. I'm looking for recommendations.
Yeah.
I mean, you found me through a
Hmm.
social media
Yep.
platform, and I had, again, no idea I previously knew your work until I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, I know him, and now I get to interview him.
Yeah.
What did I do to deserve this honor? Well,
Well,
buttering
what
the
you did,
toads.
what you did is you put yourself out there publicly, and you put
Yeah,
yourself out there in terms of your disability, and you put it on display in terms of its value. You said,
yeah,
"Hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm a show and everything else." I saw it on LinkedIn, and I was like, "Oh, that's someone I want to know. How you doing, man?" And you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, hey, holy shit!" And so
yeah.
if you didn't put yourself out there, I couldn't find
Exactly
you.
what I said.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I could talk to you for hours, and we're on the same wavelength. We may not agree on everything, but that doesn't matter. We agree on the things that matter, and wanting to not fix, not repair, but illuminate the uh, ableist and broken part of the
hmm
world, and not shame it, but lead it to a more self correction, into becoming a better version
yeah,
of themselves. And it's not about religion, it's not about self improvement, even though it's about both of those things, leads self care and therapy.
hmm
But it's about seeing the world through a more empathetic gaze, a empathetic heart, and a empathetic voice. And I mean, the line that really struck me in this episode, and I don't do this in any other episode, perhaps I should start. It's the line I stopped you and made you repeat back to
yeah,
me. You said, losing my leg was the best day of my life. I may be paraphrasing there,
no, I
but
think that was it. Yeah,
that 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 for me was even better than you can call me a one-legged bachelor, because you want you were being authentic in both cases, but you were approaching it in very different ways.
hmm hmm
And you're right. People crave authenticity now more than ever. And that's why I like doing this podcast, not to self promote myself too much, but I mean, these episodes start out as interviews. I ask the questions, and then they quickly evolve into two colleagues just having a and I hate to use a political phrase, having a fireside chat.
Yeah.
I can't get that phrase out of my head. That's such a perfect thing, except you don't have the fire, you don't have the marshmallows, but you have that camaraderie, that empathetic camaraderie, and the world needs it
Yeah.
now more than ever before. Kurt, I want to thank you again so much for the 10th time I've done that this episode, for coming on and sharing so much truth and so much realistic positivity. And thank you.
Thank you,
You
Keith, man.
really
We had
made,
a great time with you. I'm really
thank
happy
you.
to be here. Thanks for opening up your door to let me speak to your audience and talk with you, and just
Thank
being
you.
a hell of a guy. I love it.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your week, my friend. Be in
You
touch
too.
soon. Bye.
I love it. All right. Bye.